Alright, Shalom, Shalom. It's Brother Yatazda Kiro Israel. Want to start off by giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, giving double honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone, who taught us his truth. Peace and salutations to those of the hopeful elect here in Babylon the Great, which is America in these last days, and the remnant, which are throughout the four corners of the earth. Through the power of Spirit of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Now, gonna do a quick lesson, Lord willing and satisfying. This is pertaining to King David returning to his throne under Yahweh Shai Mashiach in the kingdom of heaven, established by the Most High Power Yahweh. So it would be there will be order in the first dominion, which will be given to the saints of the Most High, the Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Most High Power of Israel. That's Allahaya, the Allahaya Yasharallah. Allahaya meaning the God of Israel. Allahaya Yasharallah. Now, this is let's go into the first precept. And actually, let me play this video a bit, and so you get the understanding of how we're going to introduce the lesson. Because there's actually a land back video on the original video Apostle Tahar did about the Sakari camp, teaching that certain scriptures speaking of David pertain to his lineage and not David himself. So if you read the scriptures, read the various precepts, you go through the various precepts, because not only do you have to go precept upon precept, line upon line, you also have to go here a little and there a little. And a precept is a commandment, whether it's given through the hand of Moses, the lawgiver, or Yahweh Shai Mashiach, because you got to remember, Yahweh Shai Mashiach was commissioned to be that prophet, to command his brethren to follow the words that he will speak according to what was prophesied in Deuteronomy chapter 18. And you have words that were commanded by the Most High Power, Allahaya Yasharallah, the God of Israel, which he had gave the word to his servants, the prophets, in times of old. So if you go into the Hebrew, the commandment is Tazawah. And you have various different decrees, which is Chak. And also if you read, I believe that's Deuteronomy chapter 32, it speaks about a fiery law, or a dalath, which is a commission. Ash dalath, which is the commission of fire, which is these laws that were given unto the children of Israel after leaving Egypt, to establish an order, to give them commandments as they were to enter into the Holy Land. But the point is that these were things throughout time that were commanded by the Most High Power, the God of Israel, not only through Moses, through Yahweh Shai Mashiach, through his ministry, those who came after him, but also through the prophets of old. So if you go into the various precepts, it speaks about David himself returning in the regeneration on this throne to rule over the nation of Israel. Now there will be order in the kingdom of heaven. So you have the Most High Power, Yahweh, and you're gonna have Yahweh Shai Mashiach, Now, the Most High Power, the God of Israel, does not need to leave his throne. You read throughout the Bible that the earth and existence itself cannot contain his spirit, because his spirit is upon all flesh, all manner of creation. So the Most High Power does not need to visit the earth himself. Although in the kingdom of heaven, his spirit will be amongst men. And Yahweh Shai Mashiach. But he himself does not need to leave his throne in the heavens, because all things work by him and through him. So the point is that there will be order in the kingdom of heaven. You have Yahweh Shai, you have which will be under the Most High, the God of Israel. You have Yahweh Shai Mashiach. You're going to have King David ruling over the nation of Israel, because that is what the precepts say. And we believe through the power of Spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Kakwadash, starting with the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, that these things are faithful and true. Now, and then according to the order, you're going to have the 144,000. You're going to have the great multitude, which are delivered out of Babylon the Great. You're going to have those, according to Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11, which will be delivered throughout the various areas of the earth after and in the middle of World War III, which these are the remnant which are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. These that will be brought as an offering into the holy city. And the Most High, I believe, speaks in Isaiah 65 and 5. These are of those that will be brought as offerings unto the Most High God of Israel. As the nations of the earth, those that remain from the destruction from Armageddon, are subjugated unto the saints of the Most High in the kingdom of heaven. So you have an order on how things will be done, and David himself speaks about him returning back into his proper lot. So let's go to first precept, and let me play a little bit of this video before we go into that.
37. Okay. That's why it said, the house of Israel, make you two sticks, the house of Judah and the house of Joseph. Correct. They're going to be in captivity.
So this brother is talking about Ezekiel chapter 37. Of course, we have to have a 12 chart sign, because this is what the precepts say. And starting with Apostle Tahar and the elders and Apostle GMS, you go into the etymology of stick. That means the plank, which is the brother's going to go into the precept in Ezekiel. But it was prophesied that the children of Israel will ask in the latter days, what do these things mean? So this is the importance of going into words, and not only according to what we learn from the elders and apostles of GMS, because we learn from them and we give them the double honors, because we give respect where respect is due. But so according to the precept, a stick is pertaining to a piece of wood, a plank. If you go into the etymology, so you have to have a sign set up, which is, to the spirit, that is the 12 chart sign. And we're joining the two sticks, which is a stick is a branch, a staff, a part of a tree, because it is taken out of a tree. It was a branch before it was carved into a stick or a staff. So these are the branches that are being joined together in the 12 chart sign, which is a plank made of wood, as a sign unto the children of Israel that these are the things that tell you through the Spirit what your nationality is, what your order is according to the tribe, according to the history, how they got to where they are now, according to prophecy, according to archaeology, various accounts. So you have the southern kingdom, which are consisting of the 4 tribes, which were in Jerusalem in 70 AD and fled from Roman persecution during that time into the coast of West Africa, and according to Deuteronomy 28:68, came into the Americas and were scattered throughout these various islands in the West Indies, which you have uh, places like Haiti, the Dominican Republic. You have Jamaica, where slaves were brought into those various lands, and you have our Negro brothers, which are the head tribes, the Judites, were brought into the Americas according to what was prophesied in Deuteronomy 28:68, that you will be brought back into Egypt on slave ships. There you will be sold as bondmen and bondwomen, and no man would buy you. So these are the things that just gonna play the video so we can get right into the precepts. This is what this brother is bringing out. Although they do not bring out, and this is a something that which is important to bring out the etymology, the origin of words, because through words we give understanding on where these things originated. You read in the book of Ecclesiastes, the Most High Power gave the sons of men the 5 cognitions. You have hearing, seeing. You have the taste, and the interpretation of a speech, and understanding, to understand speech. Shortly paraphrasing, but the point is that not only is it about preaching the word, but to give an understanding on how these things were established. Now, let me just play the video so we can get right into the precepts.
Together, I'm gonna read you a few scriptures. Jeremiah 50:33. We can drop it.
37:11.
No, yeah.
This is the book of Ezekiel.
No. 14.
14.
Ezekiel 37:14.
Yeah,
okay.
This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37 and verse 14. And shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in
your... that's not it. Go to 15.
15?
Yeah, hold on. Where it says the 2 sticks? Okay, yeah, verse 17.
This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37 and verse 17. And join them one to another into the one stick, and they shall become one in thy hand.
So this is what we're doing. This is the one stick becoming one in our hand.
Okay.
Right? Both.
So the brothers explain correctly what these things mean to this so-called Christian. Now, although they did not bring out the etymology of the word, which is really something that will help you get a better understanding, which is especially in the Hebrew, because you got to keep in mind the ancient Hebrew is a living language, which is why the Most High compared it unto living waters. Why? Because the letters are symbols. The names of Hebrew men had meaning. The Most High Power of Israel his name has a meaning. You see, in the Hebrew, everything has a meaning according to the way the symbols are according to the way that you interpret the symbols. So this makes it a living language, living waters, because each word, as it's combined with these various symbols, has an interpretation that you can take from it. And we'll go into it shortly, but let's continue in the video.
When you read verse 16, it said, make one stick for Judah, one stick for Joseph. We're going to bring them together, and they're going to be one stick. Why? Because they're going to be one stick in thy hand in the land of the captivity. Read.
Verse 18. And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, wilt thou not shew us what thou meanest by these?
So you're asking right now, what does this mean, right? What does this mean? Read.
And the brothers are correct. We're supposed to explain what these things mean when asked, when being approached by someone who is in the right spirit. Now, you cannot entertain all spirits. You have to try the spirit by the spirit. And I believe that's 1 John chapter 4. But let's continue in the video just for time.
Say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph.
The stick of Joseph, that's the northern kingdom, right?
Which is in the hand of the Ephraim and the land tribes of Israel, his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah.
So there we go. The stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph being one. Why? Because they're going to be in the land of their captivity. Read.
And make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. And the sticks thereon thou writest shall be in thy hand before their eyes. And say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them unto their own land.
So if you notice, it said he's going to bring the children of Israel, and then gather them there on every side. So we see that the house of Judah and the house of Joseph, they're in this one particular group, the majority of them. But you still got to go and get the rest of them from these different places. Give me this Jeremiah 15:33.
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Question. Okay, let's keep going.
Yep.
All right.
And you see, that's why, you have to know the precepts. You have to give out certain precepts according to what you're being asked. If that person or that individual is coming in the right spirit. You cannot entertain all spirits, because again, you have those that are sent out to hinder the words of Yahweh Shem Yahushai and the ministry of his servants the prophets. But let's keep going.
So it says when he brings them together, neither shall they defile, this is 23, okay? Neither shall they defile themselves anymore with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will say.
And this is the point of the video. And what this brother needed to explain, not to get on the brother, but there's certain times we have to interject when these so-called Christians and individuals that are so-called contending for the faith, you got to explain to them that when these prophecies are written, they're not written within an immediate order. The prophecies contained and spoken by the prophets were not always necessarily going to happen following in consecutive order. There are certain things that had to come to pass, which is why the prophet saw certain visions. Certain of these visions throughout time, when new prophets were risen up, were given to them, and these things had to be the pieces of the puzzle had to be put together. And so not all things written are going to happen immediately after another. So let's just keep watching the video. So yeah, and you can tell these men, these so-called Christians, those that are coming up to these camps, to unlearn, and because they're immediately jumping here and jumping to this point and moving on to the next point. Why? Because they instead of being proud and asking these brothers, well, I want to learn what this means. What does this mean? They immediately jump into one point to another, to another, to another. Why? Because they don't understand that the Holy Scriptures have to be broken down and in a way where you have to bring out not just line upon line, but here a little, there a little. Why? Because the prophets saw the same visions in different dispensations of time. But even during the time of Yahushua Mashiach, there were certain things that were not revealed to those that Yahushua Mashiach taught, which is you even go back into the account in the book of Acts, chapter 1 and 8, Yahushua Mashiach, he spoke to those that he tarried with 40 days after his resurrection. Those that were with the disciples, he told them it is not for you to know the seasons or the times. Why? Because there are certain things that were given unto the apostles, those that were under Yahushua Mashiach during that time, and the vision wasn't fully expounded onto them. Even you go into the count of the prophet Esdras, you had certain things that were not revealed to the prophet Esdras, but he had a specific charge. His charge was to see the times of the end, to record them, and his ministry was mainly, if you go into the accounts, you had at that time, at that particular captivity, you had to have the law to be given back to the children of Israel as written. You had to have it rewritten, and through the visions that the Most High gave to those that were with Ezra during that time. So the law was at that time was lost, but it was given through those that were with Ezra through the visions that were given unto him, which is you go into the accounts. Lord willing, I'll make another video on that. But you had the prophet Ezra. He had to receive the law even from the beginning of creation, for it to be given unto him the spirit of understanding, so that he may record all those things that were lost, and the records that were burnt up during the time of the captivity. So you had certain prophets that were given a certain charge. Now let's continue in the video, which is the main point of contention that we're gonna bring out here.
Save them out of their dwelling places where they have sinned, and will, and will cleanse them, so they shall be my people, I'll be their God. Great. 24. And David, my servant, shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd, and they shall walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them.
Okay.
David's dead.
I'm going to show you something. That's talking about somebody from the lineage of David, because we know, according to
and this is where this brother's going off. Although this brother may seem like he's sincere, he's really with the wrong camp, because these brothers, one, they're not backing him up. They're not bringing out scriptures so they can edify and correct not just the Christian brother that approached the camp, but also this brother here that is teaching, because you're supposed to back up your camp members. So you can clearly see there is no there is no order within this camp. Because if there was, and this is the reason why, we make videos of these other camps so that we may reproof, rebuke, and exhort to divide the word of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai properly, and to show you how these camps are going off, because it clearly says in the precepts that King David will return as king and nation to rule over the nation of Israel. And King David himself, he said that he will return and the Most High will raise him up and back into his lot. So let's go to the first precept. This is Book of Psalms, chapter 71, verse 20. This is the Book of Psalms, chapter 71, verse 20. And it reads, Psalm 71 and 20. This is King David himself speaking. And the precept reads, Thou which hast shewed me great and sore troubles, shall quicken me again, and shall bring me up again from the depths of the earth. So the Most High power, the God of Israel, revealed unto David, his servant, the anointed, that he would be raised up, because this is what the Holy Spirit, which was upon King David, the Rakak Wadash, this is what he prophesied through the Spirit, that he would return back into his lot. And the scriptures say, let's go to the Ezekiel, which is what was this brother was bringing out here in this Sakari camp video. This is Ezekiel 37:22. It reads, And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king unto them all, and they shall be no more two nations. Neither shall they be divided into kingdoms any more at all. Why? Because the Most High God of Israel will, in its due time and in its proper course, bring the nation of Israel back into the Holy Land, which is Yerushalayim. But the point is, which is what this brother is bringing out in this video, and you gotta keep in mind, these visions were given unto the prophets in different dispensations of time. So they saw certain things. These are the things that they recorded, so that they may prophesy, and these things would be revealed in these latter days, the interpretation of these visions. Ezekiel 37:23. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned. I will cleanse them. So they shall be my people, and I will be their God. Verse 24. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd, which is the shepherd is a representation of those that led Israel in times of old, because you had the judges that judged over the nation of Israel. These were shepherds. You have Moses himself was called a shepherd over the nation of Israel according to the precepts. So this is why not only is it good to go into the etymology of words, you also have to go through the various precepts. Why? Because these accounts were written for our understanding, for doctrine, for correction, for reproof. So it says, Ezekiel 37:24, and David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They also shall walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. Verse 25, and they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. But the point is that the precepts clearly tell you in certain instances that there will be a root out of Jesse, or the branch, which is a representation of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, prophesied of his coming in the latter days, not only to confirm the promises unto the fathers, which are the Jews, the tribes that were still in the Holy Land during the times of the Romans, but also part of Yahweh Shai Mashiach's ministry was to call back the lost sheep of the house of Israel, not only during that time, but now in these latter days, because as a whole, the nation of Israel, we have left our former ways and have conformed to these heathenistic customs and practices, and have, as a whole, we have been given unto a Gentile state of mind. And all these places where we have been driven in these latter days, mainly, like this brother brings out here in Babylon the Great, as a majority, we will be in the latter days here in Babylon the Great, which is also called the Book of Jeremiah, the North Country, which is also called the daughter of Babylon, which is also called the land of the shadow of death, as you read in the Book of Job. Now, and in the Book of Revelation, mystery Babylon the Great, the whore that sits upon many waters. So, Ezekiel 37:25 says that my servant David shall be the prince forever. So there's a time when it speaks about David, actual King David, returning and reigning over the children of Israel in the kingdom of heaven. Because this is clearly, if you go line upon line, this is talking about when the kingdom of heaven is established. Like you read in the book of Revelation chapter 21, New Jerusalem ascending down from the heavens. That is talking about because Jerusalem was a people before it was a city. This is talking about those that will be delivered out of Babylon the Great, starting with the 144,000 and the great multitude, as you read in the book of Revelations, as they're beamed up into the chariots in the midst of World War III, which is Armageddon, right during the time of the mark of the beast, which is the RFID brand of the beast, in the midst of Jacob's trouble. But the point is that this clearly speaks about Ezekiel 37 and 23 and on down. This speaks about the children of Israel returning back unto the Holy Land. So there's times when it talks about a root coming out of Jesse, which is the righteous branch, which we're going to bring out those precepts. But there's times when it talks about one coming out of the loins of the house of David, which is of the house of Judah. But the Most High gave the oath to King David that there will always be a lamp and of one that will be of his seed. But you have to separate these these various prophecies. You have to know when it's talking about Yahweh Shai Mashiach being prophesied to be raised up as that prophet in the latter days, that was to fulfill a specific charge and it be appropriation for sins for the nation of Israel. And other times it's talking about the actual King David returning and reigning over the children of Israel as they are set back into their land. Now, let's go to the book of Ezekiel 34 and 23. This book of Ezekiel 34 and 23. And I will set up one shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. Verse 24. And I, the Lord Yahweh Most High Power, will be their God, and my servant David a prince among them. So this is talking about the kingdom of heaven. The Most High Power sending his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, as an angelic power to deliver his elect, with the chariots descending out of the third heavens and beaming up his elect right in the midst of these great calamities which will fall upon the earth, starting with Babylon Great in these latter days. So it says, verse 24, I, the Lord, will be their power, and my servant David a prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken it. And if you read on down, this speaks about the Most High, the God of Israel, increasing those that are the remnant that return back into the land, and increasing their cattle, and for them to dwell safely. And so this is why you have to go onto these various precepts. And if you read on down, this is talking about them being the children of Israel as they're set back into their land, being safe and being increased, but not just by their cattle, but their children being increased and them being set firm and established in the land of their fathers. Now, let's go to the next precept, Jeremiah. So this is what we're out here for. And this is why we make these videos, to expose these other camps and also to edify the people. So actually, let's just see if there's anything else.
2 Samuel 7.
Okay.
Okay, you already know that, right?
I know that, okay.
So I don't have to waste my time saying it if you already know. But when we read 1 Kings 11, and I think it's verse 22.
12, 16.
Huh?
1 Kings 12 and 16.
Yeah, where it calls him David, Rehoboam David.
1 Kings.
Read it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got the mic.
This is the book of 1 Kings, chapter 12 and verse 16. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, what portion have we in David?
So it said, what portion do we have in David, right?
Okay. Neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse to your tent, O Israel. Now see to thy own house, David. So Israel departed unto their.
So look, he said, seed into your own house, David. So he's calling Rehoboam David, just like he called the nation of Israel. He's saying David is going to reign. Why? Because it was promised to David that his seed shall reign.
Okay.
So we see an example of.
And that's true. The Most High Power, the God of Israel, told David that there will always be a lamp and amongst your seed to rule over your people, and I will not diminish that. And he promised that, and he made a promise unto King David. Even in the latter days, you see, our Judah brothers were preserved throughout these various captivities. And now, in the latter days, as they were brought into the Americas by the transatlantic slave trade, you see the Most High Power kept His promise unto the Judites, which are the head tribe. And so this brother brought out a good point to edify the people, but what he was saying and what he spoke concerning Ezekiel 37 and the precepts that I brought out, which is what he read, 37:22, and you read on down, that's talking about actually David reigning over the children of Israel, and also Jeremiah 30:7 and on down, it speaks on the same thing. Now, let's see if I can get that precept. So the brother was right. Sometimes it is talking about the house of David. It's talking about his lineage, but there are times when it's talking about David himself. Now, let's go back before we do that. Before we go on to the next precept, let's go to Ezekiel 34:23. What does it say? Verse 24, and I, the Lord, will be their power, and my servant David a prince among them. So the scriptures clearly say that King David will be their prince. So you have to separate the times when it's talking about those that will be raised up from the seed of David. And you have to separate when it's actually talking about King David himself returning as a prince and a governor under the children of Israel. Because if you go into the precepts, there's certain times when it's talking about when it speaks about David being a prince, it's talking about him being a prince of the people, which in the Hebrew that's Nashaya, which is now as a whole, you know, we are there are certain princes, the select various tribes have princes that will be ruling over them, the heads of the tribes. Now you have the head tribe, which will be residing over the whole nation of Israel as their king, which is as a prince. Why is he described as a prince? Because Hamashiach Yahushai will be the king over the nation of Israel. David will be a king, but he is given the title as the king of Israel, and because he will be under Yahushua Mashiach. You read in the Psalms, he said, the Lord said unto my Lord, and that was talking about Yahushua Mashiach. So Yahushua is his Lord, therefore that makes him a prince, but he is still a king. Why? Because he, in the if you read, like I spoke about in the various precepts, Moses was the king in Israel. He was the first king, and David is Moses in the regeneration. And you speak about these things to the people so they can understand that like I read in the book of Psalms 71:20, King David knew that he would return in the regeneration, or what they call reincarnation. So this is why you had Peter, the head of the church, given the keys to the kingdom, because he is King David in the regeneration. So these men were all kings over Israel. They were shepherds, and then we'll bring out the precepts to prove that. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 7. This book of Jeremiah 30 and 7, and it reads, Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Verse 8, For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Verse 9, But they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. So here you have David, which in Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 23 and on down, he was spoken as a prince. But here he is being spoken as the king over Israel, because everything has its order. You have a superior in a military and an army, and the nation of Israel is the army as a whole. You read about that in Ezekiel chapter 37. You read about that in the book of Exodus, how they as an army left the land of Egypt as those that were prepared for war. But now we are not fighting a physical war, we are fighting a spiritual war. But the point is that even Ezekiel 37, as the spirit of the breath of life, which was given unto the valley to the dry bones, in the valley of the dry bones, which is the vision that Ezekiel saw, which is America, is compared to the valley of dry bones. Why? Because this is the valley of the shadow of death, where light is as darkness, as spoken in the book of Job. So this is talking about the breath of life entering, as you read in Ezekiel 37, and what was commanded to Ezekiel, and we are in these latter days fulfilling that vision that he saw, because these visions were given unto these prophets so that they may be carried out according to its proper time and order. Because the Most High is a God of balance. He is a God of His works are perfect upon the earth. Why? Because He established them in the heavens, and in the earth they just play out according to His will, whether it be good or bad. And all things work by Him, through Him. Why? Because another title of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai is the God of all spirits. But the point is that you go into this precept, it calls David their king, and whom he will raise up unto the nation of Yasharallah, which is the children of Israel. Now, and you see it talks about Jacob's trouble, and reading on down, you read about things that come to pass after that time. Not exactly these things will not happen one after another, but according to the visions that were given to each particular prophet, these are visions that they saw. These are pieces of the puzzle that the Most High gave them, even as you read in the New Testament, so-called. But let's go to Jeremiah 30 and 21. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engages his heart to approach unto me, saith the Most High Power? Verse 22, And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. So the point is that if you go into the Hebrew for governor, and because you have to have, and it speaks about nobles, you have to have, because certain heads of the tribes are princes. They are princes, their head tribe of their respective tribe, These are the nobles. So you have a specific order that has to be carried out when the kingdom of heaven is established. You have the Nashaya, which are the princes, the prince of each tribe, of each family. And those same spirits are back today. And you read in the Ezekiel 34, chapter 34, 23 and on down, it describes David as a prince because he is a prince and he is a king. Why? Because he is the king of the nation of Israel, and he will return back in the kingdom of heaven as that king over Israel. Why? Because these are the words of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. These are the words that he declared throughout time through his servants, the prophets, and these things will come to pass. So the point is, Jeremiah 30 and 21, and it says, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. This is talking about King David. If you go into the word governor, it's I believe Mashal, which is this is talking about dominion, having dominion over the people of Israel. Mashal means having dominion, rulership, which is why he's described as a prince, because he will be under Yahweh Shai Mashiach, but he will be a king to the nation of Israel. So he will be a prince. He will be under the prince. In Yahweh Shai, you go into the book of Revelation. He's described as the prince of the kings of the earth. So does that mean that he is not a king? That's not what that means. Yahweh Shai Mashiach himself was described as a prince of the kings of the earth. So does that mean he's not a king when he was called a king in other precepts? That's not what that means. It means that everything has its proper order, has its proper rank. Revelation 1 and 5, and from Yahweh Shai Mashiach, who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sin in his own blood. So he is the prince of the kings of the earth, because the king of earth, heaven and earth, creator of heaven and earth, like Abraham, the patriarch, he described the Most High Power as possessor, creator of heaven and earth, which in the Hebrew you go, he says, he calls to his God, he says, La Allah, to God, Yahweh, Iwalam, which is Yahweh everlasting, Quana Aisha, which is Quana meaning possessor, creator, Aisha, Hashemayim, meaning the heavens, Wa Arataza. You read about that in the book of Genesis. Possessor, creator of heaven and the earth. So you have the patriarch Abraham describing the king of creation, and you have the first creation of the Almighty, which is Yahweh Shai Mashiach, and he is a prince under his father. Why? Because the Heavenly Father created all things, the heaven and the earth, the skies and the clouds, the day and the night. This is the Almighty power. The what you would call Allah Shaddai. This is the creator of all things, the Father of all spirits. Now, this is why Revelation 1 and 5 describes Yahweh Shai Mashiach as the first begotten, the prince of the kings of the earth. Why? Because he is under the heavenly, the the power of heaven and earth, which is Yahweh. So everything is going to have its proper order. And this is why it's important to know the precepts, so you get the proper understanding. Now let's go to Jeremiah 30 and 21. And it reads, "And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors shall proceed from the midst of them." This is talking about the nobles and the princes of the various tribes. The governor being King David, because he will be king to the nation of Israel under Yahushua Mashiach, which is the prince of the kings of the earth, under the most high power, Allahaya Yasharallah, the king, the God of Israel and of all creation. So everything is going to have its proper order. Jeremiah 23 and 3. Jeremiah 23 and 3. "And I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries whither I have driven them, and will bring them again to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase." So this is talking about when the nation of Israel returns unto the to the Holy Land, they will be increased. So everything has to happen according to its proper time. This is verse 5 or verse 4. "And I will set up shepherds over them which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more nor be dismayed, neither shall they be lacking, saith the Lord." So he's going to set up certain shepherds over them, princes, and then on over them is going to be the governor, King David. You're going to have the apostles, 12 apostles reigning over the 12 tribes of Israel, as spoken by Yahushua Mashiach during his ministry. And Lord willing, we can get to that precept. So there will be a certain order in the kingdom of heaven. Now, if you read on down, this is jumping onto a different prophecy, which is why verse 5 says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord power, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth." This is talking about Yahushua Mashiach specifically. This is that righteous branch. And this is why he is described as a king. Because King David said, he described Yahushua Mashiach as his Lord. "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit on my right hand till I make thy enemies thy footstool." And he prophesied that through the Spirit, speaking of Yahushua Mashiach. Why? Because he had to be raised up in the latter days to be that prophet to whom the nation of Israel would be given a specific commission and certain things that they would have to follow, the words that were given to Yahushua Mashiach, and the things he had to fulfill during his ministry, according to what was written in the law. So there's certain things that the charge that he was given and that he had to fulfill. So you see, this is talking about various prophecies. This is jumping from one timeline into another. This is Hosea chapter 3 and verse 5. And I think I brought out the point, but let me see if I can bring out some quick precepts. So Hosea 3 and 4, "For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice." Why? Because Yahushua Mashiach had to, like I read in the previous precept, he had to be raised. There had to be a king raised up unto them, that prophet, as prophesied Deuteronomy chapter 18, to whom the children of Israel had to obey his voice, according to the words that the Heavenly Father put into his mouth. and things that he had to fulfill. There's certain things that had to come to pass. And without a prince, so many days there would be without a prince, without a governor. Why? Because throughout these various captivities, they were scattered, they were subjugated. The prophet Daniel, it was prophesied that he would be a eunuch in the under the Babylonians and the Persians. So the point is that these princes, these various heads of the tribes, and they would be without those various leaders, without a sacrifice, without an image, without an ephod, without a teraphim. Hosea 3 and 5. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. So this is talking about King David himself. They would seek their king, King David, which is through the Spirit, the Most High, he put the Spirit in his Christian brother to seek David as king. Because the Most High, his works are declared throughout the earth, and all things are made to magnify his name and the words that he commanded from the times of old. So it says, Hosea 3 and 5, and the children of Israel shall seek David their king. And through the Spirit, we're doing that in these latter days, not just by making these videos to edify the people, but also going into the accounts so that you may see that these things will come to pass. Why? Because the Heavenly Father, he declared them from the beginning. 2 Samuel 3 and 1. This is the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 3 and verse 1. Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, and David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. So there had to be certain houses that were divided back then, which is Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin, which is the so-called Jamaicans through the Spirit. But the point is that there was a division back then, and there will be a division in these latter days. Now the house of David is ultimately the those that will return in these latter days, as prophesied in the book of Amos chapter 9 and 11, that the tabernacles of David would be raised up. This is the house of the remnant. This is the house of the elect, because you had those that reigned under the house of David, which during this time were waxing stronger and stronger. Why? Because they were with a perfect heart towards King David. And why? Because King David had a perfect mind to the Most High. He was after the heart of the Most High, which your heart is your mind. But the point is that there's a reason why the Most High Power, the God of Israel, increased David and made him stronger and stronger. Why? Because he had faithful men behind him. And the house of Saul, there was he had certain leaders that that as a whole, the Most High set them up in his house for them to wax weaker and weaker. Why? Because the Most High Power, the God of Israel, Yahweh, took that spirit from King Saul. Why? Because he exalted himself. You read in the accounts, he made a standing image of himself. So he was not giving glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. He was not following the commands and the things that were commanded of him through the servants, the prophets, which during that time that was prophet Samuel, which is why when Saul was told to wipe out the Amalekites in war, not to take any of the spoils, King Saul, he took the spoils. And this is when you go into the account, uh, the prophet Samuel said to him, not obeying the words of the Heavenly Father is as the sin of a witchcraft and as the sin of rebellion, shortly paraphrasing. So, King Saul, he had kept the cattle and the women of the Amalekites so he can, which is what he told Samuel, to offer them up as a burnt offerings. But Prophet Samuel, he said, Most High, the God of Israel, does not delight in burnt offerings, but he delights in those that obey his voice, and the things that he commands through his servants, the prophets, which during that time, the prophet that was ruling over the nation of Israel was a prophet Samuel. But that's the main point. This is why the house of David waxed stronger and stronger. Why? Because the Most High, he took that spirit, that anointing away from Saul, and gave the anointing and the spirit. He put that spirit upon David to wax stronger and stronger. And why? Because David, he was found faithful. He was taken among the sheepfolds to lead the nation of Israel. And you see the same thing happening today. You have those that were faithful and were given that spirit to be with the faithful, which is those are of the tabernacles of David, the house of David. The house of Saul were those who back then waxed weaker and weaker, and today this is that same thing going on today. This is Matthew 16 and 18. And he said unto thee, and I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the kings of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind in the earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatsoever thou shalt loose on the earth shall be loosed in heaven. So these are the kings of the kingdom, the keys of the kingdom, Slakia, which are given unto Peter, which in the regeneration, this is King David coming back in the flesh. For those who have ears to hear and who can receive the same. This is the book of John, chapter 21 and verse 15. John 21 and 15. So when they had dined, Yahushua saith unto him, Simon Peter, Simon son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my lambs. Verse 16. He saith unto him the second time, Simon son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He saith unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He saith unto him, Feed my sheep. Why? Because you read in the accounts, Moses was known as a shepherd over the nation of Israel. You read in the Psalms, David was taken among the sheepfolds and following the sheepfolds. Why? Because he was a shepherd under his father, which is a sign of things of who he was in the regeneration, which is why he was chosen amongst the sheepfold. Why? Because the son of Jesse, David, was the one that was chosen by the Most High to lead his people. And this is why Peter in the regeneration was chosen and was commissioned by Yahushua Mashiach to feed his sheep through the Spirit and through the accounts written, things written for our understanding. John 21:17, he saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved, because he said unto him the third time, lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Yahushua saith unto him, feed my sheep. Because he was told 3 times. Why? Because this was Yahushua Mashiach as a way to exemplify the fact that he had a specific charge that was given unto him. There's certain things that he had to carry out according to what was commissioned unto him by Yahushua Mashiach. And let's go into the next precept. This is 2 Kings chapter 8 and verse 19. Second Kings 8 and 19. And it reads, Yet the Lord would not destroy Judah for David his servant's sake, as he promised to give to him always a light and to his children. So the Most High, the God of Israel, promised David that he will always have his posterity to remain amongst the kings and the princes of Judah, which is why in certain instances he is described as a prince, and other times he is described as a king, because the princes were the head of the tribes of the various tribes, the Nashaya. This is Acts 15 and 12. Book of Acts 15 and 12, and it reads, Acts 15 and 12. Then all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders God had wrought among the Gentiles by them. Verse 13. And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon had declared how God at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name. Verse 14. Verse 15. And to this agreed the words of the prophets, as it is written, After this will I return and build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down, and I will bring again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up. This is talking about the faithful, those that were faithful unto the David in their past life and in the regeneration were returning back into their former covenants, which were these Israelite foreigners, which were returning into their former covenants and practices, but also believing in Yahushua Mashiach as a prophet that was to be raised up amongst their brethren. And this is talking about the house of David, which are those of the lineage of David, which were the practicing Jews that were faithful unto their covenants and practices, who knew they were Israelites and were still practicing Jewry during that time, and they were coming into the belief of Yahushua Mashiach and the things that he taught in these various churches. And were building up these Israelite foreigners as they were congregating with them in these various churches, which is why you read the epistles. Paul is speaking to 2 different groups of people, 2 different mindsets. Those who knew they were Israelites, which were the Jews, and these Israelite foreigners that were returning back into the fold. This was that tabernacle of David being set up, and in these latter days, we were all in that Gentile state of mind as we were coming into the knowledge of the law, statutes, and commandments, and our nationality. Now we are like Yahushua Mashiach spoke of in John chapter 10. We are being reborn, and built up through the Spirit, starting with the elders and apostles GMS, back into the former ways of those who came before us. So now, in the latter days, as that tabernacle of David, those who return back to their nationality, into belief of Yahweh Shai Mashiach, into the law, statutes, and commandments, and also and and into the knowledge of the these prophecies that will come to pass in these latter days. This is that tabernacle of David, those who follow Yahweh Shai Mashiach in the regeneration, as spoken of by Yahweh Shai Mashiach. So there had to be a certain dispensation throughout time that these things had to come to pass. And certain times it's speaking about Yahweh Shai Mashiach, which was to be raised up out of the lineage of David. And other times this is talking about King David himself being raised up. And when certain things have to come to pass, when children of Israel get delivered up out of Babylon the Great, and David their king being set up over them. Now, this is the book of Isaiah. Let's see if I can bring out a couple more precepts and I'll go ahead and close out. Isaiah 65 and 9. So clearly, these brothers, this is why you got to come up under the order of GMS. And you got to give the double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS. Why? Because not only do they teach you to look up words, but they also teach you to continue in the doctrine, which is sound doctrine, which ultimately is the doctrine of Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, the Holy Spirit, Rakak Wadash. It is not the doctrine of men. And you clearly see this with these other camps, because their own brothers are not backing this brother up. And this is what they should be doing, to edify and feed the people. And they're not feeding the people. They err not knowing the scriptures, which is the Spirit, the Most High set them up so that we can expose these other camps and show them where they're going off. Isaiah 65 and 9. And I will bring forth a seed out of Jacob, and out of Judah, an inheritor of my mountains. And mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. So the seed out of Jacob, out of Judah. The seed out of Jacob is the remnant, the elect within the elect, those who we get delivered out of Babylon the Great. And throughout the four corners of the earth, the remnant who return and are brought up as an offering, as they're being brought unto the Holy Land, as the kings and the nations of the earth are subjugated on the Israelites in the kingdom of heaven. So there's a remnant, like it says in Isaiah 11:11, that the Most High will set his hand a second time. But the seed, Isaiah 65 and 9, the seed out of Jacob and out of Judah, which is Jacob, it represents the nation of Israel as a whole. This is talking about those, the great multitude, and the 144,000, those who get delivered out of Babylon the Great, which is America. And the remnant are those that will be delivered throughout the four corners of the earth, and be brought as an offering and unto their brethren, to the Most High God of Israel. And the Most High will take Levites and priests out of them, which is let's see if I can get that precept. Actually, we'll just leave that for another lesson. But the point is, the seed out of Jacob is the nation of Israel, the remnant that will return in the latter days. And out of Judah, an inheritor of my mountains. He's talking about King David. because he comes out of the lineage of the tribe of Judah. And that inheritor is him being a prince under Yahweh Shai Mashiach and the king over the nation of Israel. And it says, and mine elect shall inherit it, and my servants shall dwell there. Because the elect are those that will be beamed up via the so-called UFOs, the chariots of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Kakwadash, and be set back into that land, that New Jerusalem ascending down from the heavens, as they are perfected and the laws are put in their inward parts, and like it says in the prophets, that the feeble amongst them will be as David, and the house of David will be as the Alahayim, which is spiritual power given unto those spoken of by the Most High as servants of prophets. Now, and that's spoken of also in Isaiah 16 and 16. I will send for many fishers. These are the elect, 144,000 that are on the highways and byways teaching, and those who believe in the testimony of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and the many hunters are those that will be perfected, given the spiritual power, will go out after World War III to subdue all nations, to put them into chains and slavery, along with the so-called white men throughout the whole earth. Those who remain after Armageddon, and will set order upon the earth, will be put into 1,000 years in hardcore slavery. And these things will come to pass. Why? Because the Most High declared it from the beginning. And it says in the book of Isaiah that he declares the end from the beginning. And these things were written of old, and they will come to pass through the power of Spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. This is Isaiah 63 and 11. Then he remembered the days of old, Moses and his people, saying, where is he that brought them up out of the sea? With the shepherd of his flock, where is he that put his Holy Spirit within him? So Moses was described as a shepherd over the people of Israel. If you read the book of Psalms, which I'm not going to go into that precept, you can look it up. It says that David was taken among the sheepfolds to be a shepherd over the nation of Israel. And as you can see clearly in the accounts, that Peter, Simon Bar-Jonah, he was given the keys unto the kingdom, and he was made the head of the church, which is the head of the nation of Israel, head of the congregation, head of the elect, head of the Israel of God, which is a talking about the elect within the elect, the remnant. So you see all these things are cohesive, and this is why you have to have the right precepts to bring out the correct points, and to edify the people through the power of Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Krakodash, starting with the elders and apostles of GMS, from the starting elder to Apostle Tahar and on down. So this is what was commissioned unto those that that believe in the testimony of the Most High and the servants to prophets. And is the last precept, Psalm 61 and 1. It's the book of Psalms 61 and 1. And it reads, hear my cry, O Yahweh, attend unto my prayer. This is King David speaking. Verse 2, from the end of the earth will I cry unto thee, when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. So King David here, through the Spirit, he's calling himself what Yahweh Shai Mashiach called him in the regeneration, which is the rock, the Petra, which means rock. which is the rock of the church, the head of the congregation, the king that will be, when the kingdom of heaven is established, the king over Israel, the prince under Yahushua Mashiach, which Yahushua Mashiach is described as the prince of the kings of the earth. Why? Because the Most High Power, the God of Israel, is ultimately the head of all creation. So you see, everything has its proper order, and through the Spirit, David is speaking about him being led to the rock that is higher than him. So he described himself as the rock, but he's talking about Yahweh Shai Mashiach and the Most High Power Yahweh, which is the rock that is higher than him. So you see, everything has its proper order. Through the power of Spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Mashiach Yahweh Shai. So with that, want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Kakwadash, giving double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us this truth, and give peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. And Kwame Yasharala, Shalom, Abad Babal, Shalom.